From prehistoric to present, my name is Ethan. This is Creature Guide Live Daily News. You can catch new episodes throughout the day at Creature Guide Live on Rumble and YouTube. Now, let's get into the news of the day, starting off with an article by Upworthy.com. Beavers were brought to the desert to save a dying river. This has actually happened before with different populations of beavers over in the western United States. 6 years later, here are the results. Unless I'm mixing it up with whatever population this is. Their engineering feats are pretty damn incredible. Lol. Okay. What do we have here? It's not easy being a river in the desert under the best of circumstances. The ecosystem exists in a very delicate balance, allowing water sources to thrive in the harsh conditions. These water sources in otherwise extremely dry areas are vital to the survival of unique wildlife, agriculture, and even tourism, as they provide fresh drinking water for the people who live nearby. But man made problems. Stop. Get to the positive side. I hate this. Why do you people always start out these articles with just negativity and you have to throw in over farming pollution and then push in the whole man-made climate change thing. Just I just don't like it when authors do this. Just immediately head into the animal. Rivers in Utah and Colorado that are part of the Colorado River Basin have been barely surviving that extremely harsh drought season. When the riverbeds get too dry, fish and other aquatic creatures die off. Yeah, obviously. There's no water, unless we're talking about something like certain species of lungfish, or even maybe certain amphibians, but for most fish. And the wildfire risk increases dramatically. What does the wildfire have to do with the riverbed? About 6 years ago, one team. Here's the thing, that river would create a barrier for the fire. There's no more tinder for it to burn. So it just poof, disappears. Are you saying the water itself? Yeah, but so does the dirt because there's nothing for it to burn. That's why you create all these different, like in different prescribed fires, and it's some term, but you create a dirt barrier so the fire can't get across. About 6 years ago, one team of researchers had a fascinating idea to restore the health of some of Utah's most vulnerable rivers. Bring in the beavers. Yeah, we get random pictures of beavers, not what's actually going on here. In 2019, master's student Emma Doden and a team of researchers from Utah State University began a translocation project to bring displaced beavers to areas like Utah's Price River in the hopes of bringing it back to life. Why beavers? Beaver dams, yes, we know this. When beavers, what happened? Doden and her team took beavers who were captured or removed from their original homes due to being a nuisance, interfering with infrastructure, or being in danger. And after a short period of quarantine, were brought to the Price River. Despite the research team's best efforts, not all the translocated beavers have survived or stayed put over the years. Some have trouble adapting to their new home and die off or are killed by predators, while others leave of their own accord. I really hope that they didn't take beavers from lower altitudes and then put them in a higher altitude, because usually when that occurs, even with other animals like certain populations of um, brown bears, elk, and you have that type of an elevation shock. In many cases, these animals um, die due to that intensity of just the overall change in the climate ecosystem. So we don't know where these original beavers came from. Now, if you put a beaver that was in a higher elevation to a lower elevation, tends to have a better time adapting and just getting used to the ecosystem. But we don't know. Um, it doesn't sound like these beavers were in the best just rehabilitation beforehand. But enough have stayed and built dams since 2019 that the team is starting to see the results of the effort. In fact, beaver projects just like this one have been going on all over the state in recent years. Okay, so it sounds like their population's increasing. Is this it? No, no, I don't want to see it. Just show me the beavers. Oh, wait. Okay, there's no beaver. The water levels in the river are now the healthiest they've been in years. The fish are thriving. Residents of Utah are overjoyed at the results of the experiment. Also, the North American beaver, Castor canadensis, is it basically thrives throughout North America, even to different areas of northern Mexico in the different estuaries or the different riparian areas and river systems. The largest Castor canadensis or North American beaver reached, I believe, somewhere around 110 pounds. Usually they're around the like 60 to 80-pound range. European beavers, which are a distinct species, are a bit smaller. I think it's Castor fidi. A column in the Salt Lake Tribune from 2025, 6 years after the beaver translocation began, writes that the revitalization of the Price River helped save our Utah town. Hmm. A tributary of the Colorado River, the Price River runs through downtown Helper. On a warm day, you're likely to find the river filled with tourists and locals kayaking, tubing, and fishing along its shore. A decade ago, it was hard to imagine this scene, and the thriving recreation economy that comes with it was possible. Of course, it wasn't just the beavers. Other federal water cleanup investments helped remove debris, break down old and malfunctioning dams. Yeah, there's a lot of cleanup that comes down to people, because practically every time people have to go in and help restore the ecosystem. The beavers can't do all of it. They can help with the water to some extent, but outside of that, they only play a certain role within the ecosystem. And place tighter regulations on agriculture grazing in the area that depleted vital plant life. So it sounds like there were people letting their cows overgraze the area. But the experts know that the beavers and their incredible engineering work are the real MVPs. Okay, well, here's the dam. And so, yeah, the area along Price River is quite arid. So it's just along the rivers in which you have um, this type of vegetation occurring. And outside of this region, you might have just sparses of shrubs here and there. But outside of that, you're not going to find any plants like cactus in this region. You'll have to go down to different parts of Arizona and Southern California for that to occur. But outside of this, plant life is quite limited within much of southern Utah. In other drying, struggling rivers in the area, researchers are bringing in beavers and even creating man made beaver dams. They're hoping that the critters will take over the job as the rivers get healthier. Oh, yeah, they'll definitely take advantage of the dams. Utah's San Rafael River, which is in bleak condition, is a prime candidate. In on area of the river, a natural flood inspired a host of beavers to return to the area, and riparian habitat along that stretch had increased by 230%. Wow, that's pretty. That's an immense amount of riparian area that I guess you could say a bit of marsh, just wetland in general, that the beavers increased. But this is due to the beavers minimizing the amount of water flow that enters a certain area. You can have it where usually beavers want to have a pond where the maximum current is somewhere between 1 to 2 miles per hour. And it has the most diverse flow patterns of anywhere on the river. Okay. Well, that was it. I'm glad that the beavers are helping the Price River over in Utah. It's really good to hear. This is also going to benefit different species of fish within these different rivers, especially the corresponding creeks as well. This is going to have a good impact even further downstream. And this is also going to help with aquatic insect species, even birds within the region. You could say even mammals. I mean, even the bobcats, mule deer within these different regions, they are going to be very thankful for this. So let me know what your thoughts are on these Utah beavers in the comments. And thank you for joining Creature Guy Live. Now let's move on to the next article by Sign News. Small-bodied herbivorous dinosaur unearthed in Scotland. Not a lot of dinosaurs are discovered in Scotland. Like even Ireland itself, they're quite rare. Same thing for different species of pterosaurs, crocodilomorphs, even prehistoric mammals aren't too common. Much of the case, Scotland tend to be covered by ocean for a vast period of time. The specimen is the first and most complete partial dinosaur skeleton currently known from Scotland, according to a team of paleontologists led by National Museum Scotland. So this seems to be some species of ornithopod, maybe some species of maybe Elasmaria, an artist's impression of an ornithischian dinosaur. Well, that's specific. There's, um, you could say, over 800 different species of ornithischian dinosaur. The newly described specimen dates from the Middle Jurassic period, approximately 166 million years ago. Okay. So this is around the time animals such as Liopleurodon, the more famous ichthyosaur Ophthalmosaurus, the cryptoclidid plesiosaurs, long-necked plesiosaurs, were inhabiting the oceans around England and possibly Scotland as well. Definitely an array of ammonites. You would have had even during this time um, a variety of different predators, like different species of megalosaurids, like Eustreptospondylus, which would have inhabited England at this point. And you would have also had mass sauropods. So you didn't have just these smaller neo um, ornithischian dinosaurs occurring. Dinosaurs from the Triassic and early Jurassic were generally small bipedal carnivores and omnivores, but by the late Jurassic, they had radiated into a highly diverse range of species that included some of the largest terrestrial vertebrates to ever walk the earth, said Dr. Elsa Pencaroli, paleobiologist at National Museum Scotland. This major diversification and radiation of dinosaurs appears to have primarily occurred during the Middle Jurassic, making dinosaurs from this time interval critical to our understanding of the drivers of this radiation. Yeah, so once you get down to places like England and you could say Wales occasionally, but not as many animals are found over in Wales. Still in different marine deposits. So Wales is just west of England. But England has a variety of different species of megalosaur that have been discovered there, especially the famous Megalosaurus itself, which was the first dinosaur to be described um, in the world. Now, yeah, Megalosaurus existed somewhere around 165 million years ago in England, and probably fed on different species of ornithopods and even early sauropods at this point. But this is possibly what is it? So yeah, we're pointing to animals that I'm guessing didn't inhabit the coastal regions of areas like Scotland and England, and there are different instances where there's evidence that certain prehistoric animals just wouldn't that lived on land didn't inhabit the coasts. There is evidence for different species of carnivorous theropods to have possibly fished over on the coast. However, Middle Jurassic dinosaur fossils are exceptionally poor known and globally rare, they added. Hmm. Um, yeah, poorly. Oh, well, yeah, you could say that this is a bit off depending on where you are, especially um, England. There are quite a variety of different Middle Jurassic dinosaur fossils have been discovered. What I can say about that is many of them are not complete skeletons. So, in some cases, you can say that um, there have been a variety that have been discovered. They just don't have complete skeletons, especially over in different parts of China. You have a variety of different Middle Jurassic dinosaurs, especially different species of sauropods like the Mamenchosaurids that have been discovered. Earlier species, possibly ancestors of T Rex, like Guanlong, that have been discovered there. The 6-foot carnivorous tyrannosaur that inhabited China during probably the late Jurassic, though. We're talking around 150 million years ago. Consequently, the early evolutionary histories and major diversifications of most dinosaur groups remain obscure. New dinosaur finds from the Middle Jurassic are therefore highly significant for our understanding of the development of dinosaur dominated ecosystems. So here's a picture of, I'm assuming, the specimen of this ornithopod. Location of histological section. Struts. Fine chisel preparatory marks. Posterior portion of right ilium. Okay. Unidentified limb bone. Here's the beak. It's showing up here though. The dorsal neural arc and okay, so location of histological section. Still a bit challenging to tell what we're looking at. The 166 million year old skeleton of an ornithischian dinosaur from the Kilmalog Formation on the Isle of Skye. Oh, okay. So this might be like a island off of possibly northwestern Scotland, I'm guessing. The partial dinosaur skeleton was first discovered in 1973. Wow, okay. So it's been a while, but was collected only in 2018. Wait a second. So they started uncovering it and then they finally extracted it? Wow. The specimen consists of numerous bones and bone fragments that appear to be associated and lying on a single bedding plane with an area of approximately 60 centimeters by 40 centimeters, the paleontologist said. Sounds like this wasn't a very large ornithopod. The skeleton was found in exposures of the Kilmalog Formation north of the village of Elgol on the island of Skye. It comprises the most complete fossil of its kind in Scotland, and its original discovery predates the first reported dinosaur fossils from Skye. Hmm. I didn't realize that we were finding many animals on the Isle of Skye. The Middle Jurassic of Scotland is increasingly well represented by the fossil discoveries from the Kilmallock Formation. It sounds like we're relying on this single formation for all these Middle Jurassic specimens, making it of global importance. Yeah, obviously, in our knowledge of this time period in tetrapod evolution, the researcher said. The reason why it's mentioning tetrapod is because um, dinosaurs, mammals, reptiles, birds all evolved from the tetrapods. You can even include the amphibians. It is also the most complete, definite dinosaur known from Scotland, despite being broken into fragments with a partial ilium, neural arc, and portions of ribs and other forms. If the specimen does represent an ornithischian, as tentatively suggested from the partial ilium and histological sectioning. Oh, so we don't even know uh, the so far the paleontologists working on this are doesn't sound like they're confident on whether or not this could be an ornithischian, but it just looks like it's more likely to be one instead of something like a saurischian, so possibly a species of earlier theropod. It represents the geologically youngest known occurrence in Scotland and first from the Kilmallock Formation, the scientist said. Well, it's good to know also that Scotland just has another species of dinosaur being discovered since they are not very common within Scotland itself. And luckily, the Kilmallock Formation is a source of which we're getting more species out of. So let me know what your thoughts are on this mysterious ornithischian dinosaur from the Isle of Skye, and in the comments. And thank you for joining Creature Guide Live. Now let's move on to the next episode. Article by Smithsonian Magazine. A tiny endangered creature that moves like greased lightning has been found in an unexpected place. Okay. Trail cameras captured an elusive leadbeater's possum. Oh, in the Australian state of New South Wales, where they were thought to be locally extinct. Yeah, the leadbeater's possum. Here he is. Yes, he's our mate. This guy. These animals inhabit, at least recent times, it was thought that at least I've only knew them from the Central Highlands of Victoria, which is in southeastern Australia. It's a really small area in which these possums inhabit. Um, these are marsupials, and these possums, they're actually quite matriarchal, but not in the way that you think. When people tend to think of a matriarchal society, um, when it comes to animals like elephants, it can be somewhat calm. They tend to get along with each other for the most part. You can still have troublesome females bullying like the young calves in the herd. But when it comes to animals like leadbeater's possum, they can almost be, in some cases, a bit worse. Well, somewhat like spotted hyenas. But here's the thing. So leadbeater's possums, the females, like even like the older females, will quite often get into conflict with other females of just like stranger leadbeater's possums. But even worse, the mothers in many cases get into fights with their own daughters, vicious mini possum fights. And in many cases, the females are forced to leave before the males. So the males actually stay with their mothers for a longer period of time. And I believe also the males are much more docile, kind of like with what you see in spotted hyenas. Except I don't think the possums will. Um, no, they'll probably bite each other's ears off. But the thing is that yeah, it's quite interesting when it comes to this possum's behavior, since it's quite unique among possums. This isn't a normal possum behavior. It does belong to a family of possums in which there are 11 distinct species. There's over 120 different species of possum in the world, and they're not just restricted to Australia. You can also find them, um, some species over different parts of Oceania, which technically Australia is a part of, but also South America and the lonely um, Virginia possum in North America. Researchers in Australia were scrolling through thousands of trail camera photos when they spotted an unmistakably bushy tail on the screen. Oh, okay. So there's around 4,000 of the Leadbeater's possum over in Victoria. Oh, there's some in the lowlands too, apparently. They were overjoyed. The images showed a Leadbeater's possum, a tiny creature thought to be extinct in that particular region of the continent. Yeah, this is shocking. Leadbeater's possum showing up in New South Wales. That's a good thing. A trail camera in Coxsackie National Park, located in the state of New South Wales, captured 7 images of a Leadbeater's possum, Gymnobeledius leadbeaterei, over the course of about 10 seconds. The photos were a welcome surprise because scientists thought the critically endangered species only lived in Victoria, some 150 miles away. Wow, somebody made a trek. This is a possum that's like 13 inches in length and might weigh somewhere between 100 and 180 grams. So this is quite remarkable. It jumped right out at me, says Fred Ford, a senior threatened species officer with the New South Wales government, to the Australian Associated Press. Ecologists were looking for a different endangered species, the smoky mouse, when they set up trail cameras throughout uh, Kosciuszko National Park in 2024. Yeah, the Smoky Mouse, despite the Smoky Mountains existing in North America, it does inhabit. Um, it is a native rodent to Australia. Um, Once a year had passed, they collected the devices and began the process of sifting through the millions of photos. Also, when it comes to the 11 different species of possum to the family in which the Leadbeater's possum belongs to, there's 2 different types in this family. There's a side stripe, there's the striped possums, and then there's the um, right-wristed possums. Well, the wristed possums specifically, I believe, belong to New Guinea, so they do not inhabit Australia, and the striped possums are over in Australia. Oh, okay. They did find photos of the Smoky Mouse, but from a camera placed near Yarongo Billy Caves, they were also shocked to find images of a tiny possum scampering through leaf litter, holding its distinctive club-shaped tail erect, researchers write in the conversation. The photos captured the creature's heart-shaped face as well as the stripes running along its face and back. So this striped possum. You have to be out there looking at the world to find these rare species. Ford tells the Australian Associated Press, you might not be specifically looking for what you find, but the more you look, particularly using modern techniques such as remote cameras and environmental DNA, the more chance you have to find them. The Leadbeater's possum also feeds on quite a bit of its diet consists of plant excavates, which are nutrients that it can obtain from the fluids coming from the plant's stem, the roots, but they also will feed on different species of insects. They'll go after like even different species of beetles, and they need to in order to successfully reproduce. The plant excavates wouldn't allow them to do so. New South Wales scientists were confident the animal in the trail camera photos was a Leadbeater's possum. But to be sure, they consulted with experts at Zoos Victoria and the Australian National University who confirmed the creature's identity. So here's the Leadbeater's possum. It's very nice. Okay. The Leadbeater's possum, okay, yeah, they've got a small territory, somewhere around 5 to 7 acres. This is much of the case with many species of possum, especially the smaller species. It looks like a sugar glider, except it's not a glider. Yeah, gliders are their very own distinct lineage of possum. Okay, nicknamed forest fairies, Leadbeater's possums are the faunal emblem of Victoria, a designation similar to the state animals of the United States. The creatures were thought to have been extinct when they were rediscovered in 1961 near the town of Marysville, per the Australian Associated Press. Yeah, I'm from Texas. I've never really felt that connected to armadillos. I mean, I don't mind them, but um, my um, yeah, I've chased them down, but my heart doesn't feel broken if somebody hunted an armadillo. Um, I'm just like, okay. So today around 4,000 of them. Oh, the lowland population has shrunk to just 40 individuals. That's not good. Jeez, poor guys. Yeah, look at him. It's like, see, now you understand. Finding a Leadbeater's possum in Kosciuszko National Park was not a total surprise. Researchers had a hunch the marsupials might be living there based on the lush, damp forested ecosystem that exists in some parts of the 1.7 million acre park. Wow, okay, this is a large national park. In 2010, they found the jaws of a Leadbeater's possum that had been regurgitated by an owl. Well, that's unfortunate. But other bones found nearby were between 140 and 200 years old. So this discovery only proved the possums had inhabited the area at some point in time. The photos were the first proof of a living population in the park. Now that they know a population exists in New South Wales, researchers are eager to learn more. They suspect the creatures may be genetically distinct from those living in Victoria based on the long distance between the two locations. So they could be, I'm guessing, at least different subspecies. They are not necessarily an easy animal to catch, but they're able to be trapped with the right techniques. And Lyndon Meyer, who began looking for the Leadbeater's possum in Kosciuszko National Park more than 30 years ago, to the Australian Broadcasting Corporation. It will be possible to take small tissue or hair samples to work out what its genetics are to see whether it's closely or distantly related to the animals in Victoria. Scientists are also quick to point out that the discovery of a previously hidden Leadbeater's possum population does not negate the need to protect the creatures. In Victoria, the animals' numbers are dwindling because of predation by cats, habitat loss due to logging and wildfires, um, and inbreeding, especially for that lowland population. That's a pretty big concern. They argue that it's important to protect the remaining wild habitats that are vital for the survival of at risk species. Leadbeater's possums, for instance, need old growth trees with holes for denning and breeding, as well as smaller trees that provide cover as they move around in search of insects, nectar, and sap to eat. So it's probably from the excavates of the plants where they're obtaining the sap. Here's the little guy. I wonder if they're giving him. Yeah, possibly sap. But passive habitat protection is not enough, conservationists argue. Work also needs to be done to remove invasive species, like feral horses in Kosciuszko National Park, for example. Efforts are underway to cull the park's horse population via aerial and ground shooting, trapping, and rehoming. That's funny. You put rehoming a glass. Oh, no, no, no. I mean, it's okay. Some might be adopted. Um, I mean, this is funny because usually when you hear conservationists um, mention a horse calling, it's like this horrible, dramatic thing. And it's like, you do realize, like, horse meat is like a Dutch tradition. So, I mean, I'm okay with this, but I do hope if you get adopted, um, yeah, but it's like, here's the thing: there are hundreds of thousands of feral horses within Australia. So when it comes to these types of instances with like feral horses, especially since they're also non-native to Australia, I'm not against that either. And it's also extremely humane. Just pew pew. This special find in Kosciuszko National Park once again highlights why the government is taking action to remove invasive species to protect Australia's only mainland alpine region, which spans the New South Wales and Victorian border. Oh yeah, this is the area where you see those awesome wombats just trudging through the snow. Says Penny Sharp, Minister for the Environment in New South Wales, in a statement. Yeah, so it's also, I think, known as the Australian Alps. Technically, there's like 4 Alps regions on Earth, not just over in Europe. It's also Japan has Alps and possibly some part of South America. The discovery also highlights the importance of surveys and monitoring work, including basic species, inventories, and conservation areas. Other elusive creatures may also be out there somewhere. Researchers just haven't found them yet. Okay, let's see. Is there anything else about the possum? Okay, that's it. Okay, well, this is good to see that they've found the Leadbeard's possum over in New South Wales. The problem is, how many are there? Also, within this, Kosciuszko National Park, and yeah, most like the core of the population is over in the Highlands. So I'm guessing there's over 3,000 within that region. So let me know what your thoughts are on the Leadbeater's possum in the comments, and thank you for joining Creature Guide Live. Now let's move on to the next article by Sign News. Here we go. This little theropod. New, perfectly preserved specimen of Archaeopteryx discovered. Okay, so this is a member of the theropod lineage of dinosaurs, but even more specifically, this is a paravarian, which consists of the different families of dromaeosaurs, troodontids, scolepteryxids, and the Uintathorians. These are all different, like raptor-like species that inhabited um, different parts of the theropod family tree within the dinosaurs, and also includes the 11,000 species of birds today. So, okay, this is the 14th known specimen of this iconic Jurassic species. So, Archaeopteryx did exist between like 148 and 150 million years ago during the late Jurassic over in southern Germany. Okay. The Chicago specimen is the smallest one known, only about the size of a pigeon. Its tiny hollow bones are preserved in a slab of extremely hard limestone. So, when it comes to Archaeopteryx itself, it's not exactly the precursor to modern day birds. It is related, and this animal was capable of flight. It just wasn't as efficient as many modern day birds or even later birds into the Mesozoic, Cenozoic era. Um, but it's very possible that it flew more like a pheasant. So it'd be quite just short bursts of flight and it would have to come back down to land or maybe perch on some tree branch at some point. Like all Archaeopteryx fossils, the new specimen was found in limestone deposits near Solnhofen, Deutschland, Germany. This particular fossil was found by a private fossil collector prior to 1990 and had been in private hands since 1990. Oh, okay. A coalition of supporters helped the Field Museum procure it. It arrived at the museum in August 2022. When we first got our Archaeopteryx, I was like, this is very, very, very cool. And I was beyond excited, said Dr. Hingmai O'Connor, Associate Curator of Fossil Reptiles at the Field Museum. But at the same time, Archaeopteryx have been known for over 160 years. Yes, it is one of the older dinosaur specimens to be discovered. Possibly part of the bone wars between. No, no, I don't think it was. I don't think it had to do with Edward Drinker Cope or Othniel Charles Marsh. Not that they probably didn't take a look at it. So I wasn't sure what new things we would be able to learn. Now, the thing is also Archaeopteryx, there have been over 6 different species of Archaeopteryx that have been discovered, with the largest having wingspan of somewhere around 3.5 to 4 feet, probably weighing somewhere around 2 to 7 pounds. But our specimen is so well preserved and so well prepared that we're actually learning a ton of new information from the tip of its snout to the tip of its tail. Thanks to the specimen's exceptional preservation, the paleontologists conducted high resolution CT scanning and digital 3D reconstruction. The results reveal an almost completely preserved skull, including a remarkably intact palatal region. The bones in the roof of the mouth help us learn about the evolution of something called cranial kinesis, a feature in modern birds that lets the beak move independently from the brain case. Said Dr. O'Connor. That might not sound exciting, but to people who study bird evolution, it's really important because it's been hypothesized that being able to evolve specialized skulls for different ecological niches might have helped birds evolve into more than 11,000 species today. Meanwhile, also, it looks like Archaeopteryx is probably feeding on a variety of different insects, probably not very herbivorous. Now, it might have gone after even smaller mammals at the time, probably reptiles, but insects are probably the core of its diet. Meanwhile, soft tissue is preserved in the Chicago Archaeopteryx's hands and feet, bolster ideas that Archaeopteryx spent a lot of its time walking on the ground and might even have been able to climb trees. Oh, yeah, it's very possible. I mean, if you look at how Archaeopteryx's fingers are displayed, it's very possible. Like, this isn't, I guess you could say, too distinct from even certain species of Microraptorids, different species of dromaeosaurs in general. And you're looking at its claws, it's not too far from like today's eagles, hawks. It could have climbed the trees. Um, Okay, so the Chicago Archaeopteryx's wing feathers factor into a long standing scientific debate about the origins of flight in dinosaurs. Archaeopteryx isn't the first dinosaur to have feathers or the first dinosaur to have wings, Dr. O'Connor said, but we think it's the earliest known dinosaur that was able to use its feathers to fly. This is actually my favorite part of the paper, that part that provides evidence that Archaeopteryx was using its feathered wings for flying. So yeah, it does look like Archaeopteryx so far is the earliest known dinosaur to have been able to fly. It just couldn't fly for very long. Many species of Dromaeosaurid did evolve gliding abilities like today's gliding squirrels, but they weren't able to fly. Also, Archaeopteryx was not a member of the Dromaeosauridae lineage of dinosaurs. I also believe this was right before different members of the Dromaeosauridae lineage would evolve. Okay, so the key to Archaeopteryx's flight might be a set of feathers never before seen in a member of its species, a long set of feathers on the upper arm called tertials. Compared to most living birds, Archaeopteryx has a very long upper arm bone. Oh, yeah. It's very interesting how long of an arm bone it has compared to its body size. And if you're trying to fly, having a long upper arm bone can create a gap between the long primary and secondary feathers of the wing and the rest of your body. If air passes through that gap, that disrupts the lift you're generating, and you can't fly. However, modern birds have evolved a solution to this problem: a shorter upper arm bone and a set of tertial feathers to fill the gap between the bird's body and the rest of its wing. Our specimen is the first Archaeopteryx that was preserved and prepared in such a way that we can see its long tertial feathers, Dr. O'Connor said. I thought there were other Archaeopteryx that have been discovered with feathers already, like its tertial feathers already preserved, unless this is a specimen I'm thinking of, and I'm just mistaking something else for this. These feathers are missing in feathered dinosaurs that are closely related to birds, but aren't quite birds. Their wing feathers stopped at the elbow. That tells us that these non-avian dinosaurs couldn't fly, but Archaeopteryx could. This also adds to evidence that suggests dinosaurs evolved flight more than once, which I think is super exciting. So this is interesting with the well-preserved Archaeopteryx and just the insights into its flying ability, as well as where these feathers are located along the arm of this animal. So this was really interesting. I think Archaeopteryx, that was quite a dull picture that they put of the reconstruction of Archaeopteryx in the article. There are really good, just colorful and very complex images. That looks like something from the 1960s in some instances. Okay, well, let me know what your thoughts are on Archaeopteryx in general in the comments, and thank you for joining Creature Guide Live. Now let's move on to the next article. Oh, wait. That's weird. Hold on. I like to do a mix. By Live Science. Florida bobcat bites the head off of 13-foot Burmese python in the Everglades. What? Whoa. Wildlife experts believe that predators native to the Everglades are beginning to fight back against the invasive species of snake. Yeah, they've been fighting back for a while. It's just been a poor defense, mainly because Burmese pythons are one of the worst invasive species within the Everglades. You're talking about a protected area that's over 2,300 square miles, so over 1 million acres in this region of southern Florida. And the Burmese pythons have just been consuming most of the different mammals in the region, especially decimating the smaller mammal species and even going after different native reptiles, amphibians, birds in the region. Alligators are having a bit of a better time fighting off the invasive python. They were thought to have been released into the Everglades back in the 70s in different parts of no, just back in the 70s, coming in from India. So this is where the Burmese python is native to, and they have just been exploding in population. There could be somewhere between 100 to 200,000 Burmese pythons, I think, just within the central to southern Florida region itself. And on average, you hear that maybe 2,000 were caught in a year. Um, Also, mainly within the Everglades region. But it's unfortunate that the hunts that occur today, they're barely having an impact on the population of pythons, especially since they can lay like over 20 eggs. So that's another thing you have to take out. A Florida bobcat has managed to take down a Burmese python in what wildlife biologists are calling a win for native Everglades predators. Scientists are still investigating how and when local predators face off against the invasive snakes, but the finding hints that native species are learning to take advantage of the competition as a potential food source. Yeah, I was thinking originally when I was hearing about these snakes invading Florida that um, the animals like bobcats, alligators, cougars were taking advantage of the pythons as a prey source. But all of these predators have to be careful considering these animals can reach over 20 feet in length and weigh more than 200 pounds. and are very capable of constricting them to death or squeezing them to death. So that's a problem they have to face. This is also while they're also having to worry about like eastern diamondback rattlesnakes, water moccasins, or cottonmouths um, in the region. But especially even like the Florida panther or the cougars in the region, they're having a tough time since they have a pretty low population. The snake remains were found near the city of Naples in December 2022 by wildlife biologist Ian Partozesk of the Conservancy of Southwest Florida. Since 2013, he and his colleagues have used radio trackers to keep tabs on male Burmese pythons, and during breeding season, their male scout snakes lead researchers to fertile female snakes and their eggs. From there, researchers remove and euthanize the reptiles in an attempt to cull the invasive population. Whoa. Was that in his stomach? It swallowed the alligator. Fully intact. Poor guy. Hmm. This does not make you want to make fried alligator. You feel bad. Yeah. Oh, yeah, especially in this instance. He's still in the tissue. Okay, at the same time, I think it's cool, but it's just the devastation that these snakes are having. It's like, gosh, it's like completely. Um, it's like they took out a clone of an alligator. It's kind of cool. Sheesh. On that chilly day, what does that mean, Florida? It's 62 degrees. This Pardo Zesk's team was tracking Loki. That's funny. You gave him a 13-foot long, 52-pound scout snake. Yeah, sounds about the weight of Tom Hiddleston. They expected to find Loki holed up with a female python. Instead, they found his freshly slain body, with the head and neck gnawed off and buried beneath pine needles nearby. It was a bit sad and a bit exciting at the same time. Wait a second. Oh, okay. I was just recapturing what happened. So this was the snake that was decapitated by whoever. Um, who had said Pardozesk, who had tracked Loki through 6 breeding seasons. We sort of treated it as a bit of a CSI crime scene. The team immediately started to look for clues as to what had killed the massive snake. The way Loki's neck had been chewed and his head buried suggested a large cat, either a bobcat or a Florida panther, as the culprit. So bobcats are part of the lynx genus. So they are a distinct. They're a distinct species of lynx within North America. They range down to different areas of southern Mexico and as far north as different parts of southern Manitoba, Saskatchewan, Alberta. They get to an area somewhere in like southeastern central British Columbia, but that's the furthest north of the bobcat species. And then Florida panthers are subspecies of cougar or puma, and they inhabit, at least for the most part, in southern Florida. There have been some instances, I think, of certain individuals possibly reaching like the Okanochee National Forest over in Florida. So occasionally you are having Florida panthers reach different parts of central, like north central Florida. Not really hitting the panhandle though, but it is possible that certain cougars from further west are establishing territories over in the panhandle of Florida. So past areas like Panama City Beach and even possibly as far east as areas of Jacksonville, outside of the city. Okay, Bartosz contacted wildcat expert David Scheindel of the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, who set up a trail cam near the kill site in case the cat came back for its buried meal. The next morning, it did, and its behavior was caught on video. All of a sudden, out of the background, an adult bobcat comes walking in across a log. Bartoszewski described. You could see it sort of sniffing the air, probably picking up on your scent, seeing what information it was cluing into, and basically returning to the kill site. These are claws. Bobcat claws were found during a necropsy of the python. Whoa. It swallowed the cat too? Yeah, a bobcat. Um, yeah, I think bobcats usually average somewhere around 30, 35 pounds, depending on the subspecies. But I think there were definitely confirmed individuals of over, I think, 49 pounds. A bit of a question as to one incident, I think back in 2012, where there could have been an individual weighing as much as 60 pounds. I think it's unconfirmed at the moment. That's huge. But this is quite remarkable. They're eating everything. Um, Burmese pythons have been known to eat bobcats, but Bartoszewski suspects this particular bobcat seized an opportunity to pick off Loki while he was incapacitated. A cold snap had hit southern Florida a few days before the scientists found the snake's remains. And since male snakes are usually out and about looking for females during breeding season, the chilly weather may have left the cold blooded Loki stunned and sluggish, far from his usual warm burrow and unable to fight off the predator. I didn't know Tom Hiddleston likes being in warm burrows. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Um, No, snakes prefer warm burrows. Working on the front lines of these wildlife studies offers the chance to observe new and interesting predator prey reactions. Bartoszewski told Live Science, it felt like score one for the home team where our native animals are fighting back, he said. That's a good sign. What's funny, one instance, okay, so we're tracking Loki and like for over 6 breeding seasons. Oh, but he's dead. He's been decapitated. That's sad. Oh, a bobcat killed him? Okay, we feel good now. It's kind of deranged. Like, I don't know what to say. Oh yeah, here's Ted, and he's just guarding his corpse. After finding the deceased snake, researchers caught a bobcat returning to the kill site. These kinds of predation events are likely becoming more common in the Everglades, Bartoszewski said. His team found the remains of a different scout snake after another cold snap earlier this season. This one likely killed by a black bear. Yeah, that wasn't hitting me since you have over 6,000 black bears over in Florida. I wouldn't be surprised if they were. I would think that they would be feeding on the pythons to some extent. Researchers are still collecting evidence and looking for trends in how predators like bobcats and bears might be turning the tables on pythons. There is a bit of a pattern emerging and you'd expect as much over time, the ecosystem is rebalancing itself. It's fighting back. Yeah. I'm not going to rely on the handful of bobcats, black bears, and panthers in the area. I admire their defense and their loyalty to the ecosystem. Um, but they need some more help. They need somebody going in there and pew pew all of these different pythons. So these native predators are recognizing Burmese pythons as a new food source and are able to take advantage of some of their vulnerabilities. Oh, that's it. Okay. Okay. Well, let me know what your thoughts are on the predators putting up a bit of a defense against these Burmese pythons. Also, just the pythons taking over in the comments. And thank you for joining Creature Guide Live. Now let's move on to the next article by ABC News. Dozens of dinosaur footprints found at Australian school, scientists say. It is one of the most densely concentrated dinosaur tracks found in the country. So, what have we got? These are probably elasmarian ornithopods. I have a feeling. Yep, it's going to show a person. I don't care about you. There's a sauropod. Why are we looking at Diplodocid? There's nothing to do with what? Oh, does it have to do with? Wait, were they of? I'm so confused. You show pictures of elasmarian dinosaurs. Wait, they're gone. What? What just happened? Dozens of dinosaur footprints embedded in a boulder were found hiding in plain sight at a school in Australia, according to researchers. The large rock was excavated from the Clyde Basin in central Queensland and gifted to the Morris State High School, where it sat unnoticed for 2 decades, according to the University of Queensland. Wow, well that's funny. there were uh, there were just footprints, dozens of them, at this school, and they finally um, found them inside the boulder. When paleontologists were asked by the school to examine a cluster of three-toed track marks on the boulder, they found it contains one of the highest concentrations of dinosaur footprints per square meter ever documented in the country, according to a paper published Monday in Historical Biology. Oh, okay. So wait a second. Are these theropod or ornithopod footprints? Because ornithopods, especially the bipedal ones, can um, confuse you. I guess not confuse you, just mess with you, like in terms of the overall just widened shape of the toe. Um, the toe claw marking. Wow, several. Oh, there's got to be several individuals. I don't think it's just one continuously walking around. The rock contains 66 footprints from 47 individual dinosaurs. Anthony Romilio. Wow, that's pretty incredible. A paleontologist at the University of Queensland and lead author of the study said in a statement, the footprints were likely imprinted onto the boulder as the dinosaurs passed across a patch of wet white clay, possibly walking along or crossing a waterway during the early Jurassic period. About 200 million years ago, Romilio said. Wow, so this was literally this was occurring at the border of the Triassic and Jurassic boundary. It's an unprecedented snapshot of dinosaur abundance, movement, and behavior from a time when no fossilized dinosaur bones have been found in Australia, Romilio said. Yeah, this is unheard of this early in time, especially for even the Jurassic, for fossilized specimens of dinosaurs in Australia. Each footprint has three toes, indicating that they belong to the ichneuspecies Aenomoipus scambus, small dinosaurs with legs between 6 inches and 20 inches, Romilio said. They were likely traveling less than 4 miles per hour, the researchers determined. I'm not familiar with Aenomoipus. Guessing it's probably one of those elasmarians it showed in the picture before it disappeared. Okay, so here are all these small footprints. Interesting. Skeletal fossils from dinosaurs with these types of feet indicate that they were likely plant eaters with long legs, a chunky body, and short arms, Romilio said. Yeah, you could say elasmarians were quite, they had a very large stomach. While the boulder was resting in the schoolyard for years, advanced 3D imaging and light filters were able to reveal the hidden details in the footprints, Romilio said. It's incredible to think that a piece of history this rich was resting in the schoolyard all this time, he said. Okay, here they are. Yep, little as. Oh, wait a second. These might not be elasmarians because this is over 200 million years ago. And the elasmarians are descendants of the iguanodontids. And so I was talking like, Cretaceous, maybe around 110 million years ago. This is 90 million years earlier. So this is one of the earlier ornithopod species. So this is pretty remarkable. I do not know what family this could belong to. Oh, that's it. Well, um, okay. Well, let me know what your thoughts are on these ornithopods within Australia. Preserve those tiny footprints underneath that boulder in the comments. And thank you for joining Creature Guy Live. Now let's move on to the next article. Wait. 70. Oh, by Manga Bay. 70 southern white rhinos arrived at their new home in Rwanda from South Africa. Wow. Okay. So this is a massive relocation with these rhinos. Conservation NGO African Parks have successfully transferred 70 southern white rhinos from South Africa to Rwanda's Akagera National Park. The rhinos are the first international translocations under African Parks Rhino Rewild Initiative, which will disperse more than 2,000 rhinos from a captive breeding program, captive breeding operation that the NGO purchased in 2023. Wow. African Parks previously moved a herd of 30 rhinos to Akagera in 2021 and says Rwanda will provide a safe, viable home for more viable home for more with the potential for future expansion of the white rhino population from there into East and Central Africa. So the thing is that white rhinos, they are native to southern Africa. So different countries such as South Africa, different parts of Mozambique, Botswana, possibly also historically Swaziland or Lesotho, which is a little country, um, little mountainous country within eastern South Africa, and Namibia, possibly ranging into certain parts of Zimbabwe. But north of that, they're actually not native to these different areas. You can find native black rhino populations as far north as different parts of possibly Ethiopia historically, but definitely into different parts of Kenya, Tanzania, Zimbabwe. But the thing is that they're really they're relocating these animals because of the massive poaching that's been occurring in different southern African countries, which is embarrassing. But apparently, Rwanda, which is quite surprising, is a bit of a safer haven for these animals. And they just have better protection also within these parks. 70 southern white rhinos have successfully completed a journey from South Africa to Rwanda's Akagera National Park. It's the first international translocation from platinum rhino, a massive captive breeding operation that was put up for auction in 2023 after years of financial difficulties. You know, you would think with all these celebrities that scream about certain animals dying off, that none of these conservation organizations would be having trouble financially. It shows that most of these people do not care. Um, when no bidders came forward, African Parks bought the 7,800 hectare property, which sits 160 kilometers or 100 miles southeast of Johannesburg. Okay, so it's still technically like central South Africa. And it's 2,000 rhinos, as well as giraffes, zebras, and other species for an undisclosed sum. Platinum rhino was renamed Rhino Rewild. The rhinos represent around 15% of the world's total population of white rhinos, Ceratotherium sama. Also, Ceratotherium is a close relative of Deorhinus, which is a black rhino genus. African Parks Rhino Rewild Initiative aims to disperse the animals to safe, well-managed protected areas across Africa, creating new strongholds and bolstering existing populations. Yeah, so this is also going to help prevent inbreeding. And South Africa in general hosts the largest population of white rhinos, somewhere around 10 to, no, somewhere between 11 to 13,000 animals. Namibia, I think, has around 2,500 rhinos. Botswana is somewhere around 800 individuals. Mozambique has somewhere around 100 to 200. And then smaller relocated populations over in Kenya, Tanzania, and Rwanda. I think Kenya might have no. Tanzania might have somewhere around 70 rhinos, white rhinos, and Kenya might have somewhere around 50 to 60. I'm not sure about Rwanda. But the first 40 rhinos were translocated from Rhino Rewild to Manyuwana Conservancy, a private game reserve in South Africa's KwaZulu-Natal province. Now, 70 rhinos have been moved to Akagira. Hey, so I think this is one of the ones he's been marked that has been moved. A white rhino adjusts to its new home in Rwanda's Akagira National Park. Akagira can potentially hold significant numbers of white rhinos, said Donovan Huste, rhino rewilding project manager for African parks. This, in addition to the fact that Rwanda is a stable country with a government that's very supportive of our work, means this rhino population could be very important for the species' long term success. African parks relocated a herd of 30 rhino to Akagira in 2021, which we're thrilled to say has grown. Oh, okay. That's good. Oh, they've had calves since then. This gives us comfort in the knowledge that the new arrivals can thrive. Here, Rwanda's location on the continent is also ideal for potential future expansion of the white rhino population into East and Central Africa. Also, looking at the size of the white rhino itself, they tend to range between around 4,000 to is it 7,900 pounds. So yeah, we're talking over what 2, 4, 6. Yeah, approaching 4 tons. Let's see, they can have horns also exceeding somewhere around 4 feet. It's also made up of keratin and not horn. So, oh yeah, not made up of bone. If you're looking at different species of antelope within different parts of Africa, their horns, specifically like the bone, is covered in a layer of keratin. It's very similar to like with what you see in bison, but not rhinos. They specifically have just a very thick layer of keratin. Let's see. Dave Balfour, an independent expert who chairs the African Rhino Specialist Group at the IUCN, the Global Wildlife Conservation Authority, and who isn't part of the Rhino Rewild Initiative, said that while rhino conservation requires that the rhinos are safe, there's a lot more to consider when planning a translocation. Well, yeah, it's kind of like what I mentioned with the who was it? The possums? Might have been the possums earlier with the relocations where you don't want it where you're introducing a oh no, it wasn't possums, the beavers. You don't want to be introducing rhinos from lower elevations to higher elevations. Now, on the bright side, you have it to where probably in these different areas of South Africa, it's higher elevation than in certain parts of Rwanda, I'm guessing. So they probably have, a more of a um, relaxing time traveling to Rwanda and adapting to the area as opposed to, the opposite instance. But another thing is that are they getting in the right amount of food? Are they hydrating well? Just psychologically, are these rhinos okay? There's a lot of things to take into account. Also, consistently having checkups on their health, like do they have any diseases or viruses? Um, did one of them, break a limb or something happened to its ear along the way? There's all these different health factors. Let's see. The translocation of southern white rhinos to Akagera National Park takes them out of their recent historical range, and although they may be relatively secure from poaching, other risks are introduced that must be managed carefully, said Belfar. Yeah, I mean, predators, especially when they're younger, are still um they can still be an issue. But when they're older, it's more of just fights with other rhinos. You could say maybe even Cape buffalo in some instances, but usually the white rhinos beat up the Cape buffalo, hippos, pretty much everybody but the elephants. And I guess you could say also during the dry season and just obtaining enough water and enough nutrients. And then when it comes to diseases within these different regions are the bigger threats. For example, risks include potential negative impacts on the receiving habitat or that the rhinos are exposed to unfamiliar diseases, like I said, or fail to adapt to the new environment. Translocations are complex and challenging and can lead to fatalities. In May 2018, four of six critically endangered black rhinos, Dicaros, bicornis, that African parks moved from South Africa to Chad's Zakuma National Park died when they failed to adapt to eating the vegetation in their new home. Okay, so that was another thing. Are the rhinos going to feed on the vegetation within these different areas outside of their historic range? So that's very unfortunate with the black rhinos, which are even lower in population compared to the white rhino. Technically, the black rhino has, when it comes to rhino species in general, has the second largest population, but we're talking about something between 6,000 to 7,000 individuals. So they're not too far below like animals such as African paying dogs and cheetahs when it comes to population estimates. But white rhinos are somewhere between 17,000 and 21,000 individuals. So that's not good. That was really sad. Now, granted, that was back in May of 2018. I haven't checked on the recent black rhino population in different countries within Eastern and Southern Africa. But Chad, I think that's out of their historic range. I was actually thinking that they might have gotten poached in that region. I'm actually a bit shocked that it's they died because they didn't eat the vegetation. Four of six died. Okay, well, at least no more did. Okay, so is this near Akagera? Okay, so I'm guessing they're traveling through a road in Rwanda. So these crates right here in the pictures are the rhinos. That's pretty remarkable. And here's one of them. Moments after darting with tranquilizer, a rhino is blindfolded. Yeah, these animals, they can also reach a length of over 15 feet. So it's quite a massive just volume you're having to deal with. But in this state, they're a bit sluggish. The latest translocation was completed in two stages, each involving 35 rhinos. Wow. The first batch started out on June 4th and the second on June 7th and were continuously monitored by veterinary teams. Now, here's the thing. It seems you would think that, this procedure, it probably, doesn't take a whole lot of effort. The rhino maybe just moves from one enclosure to the other or paddock. But the truth is, in some cases, you can have it where you need like 12 guys handling a like one rhino. In some cases, it's a juvenile and it's like half out of it or just half tranquilized still or sedated. And it's still putting up a semi fight with the people. Like they're not trying to hurt it, but he just doesn't exactly know what's going on. He's confused, and it can actually be quite a handful. It's usually with the calves, though, that tend to um, that are a bit hard to move in some cases because they're usually handling them a lot more, trying to push one to another area than compared to the adults. Can't really move with several people um, on foot necessarily, like a half tranquilized full grown white rhino. At least I haven't seen it. The okay, so the first oh no, wait. The rhinos were initially moved from the Rhino Rewild site to Manuana to expose them to natural diseases and climatic conditions prior to their move to Akagira. Oh, okay. So this was a bit of like a sort of it's not a rehearsal, but just a bit of like a pre enclosure. They do this with many animals in different relocation events. So that way they get used to this type of similar ecosystem, and then they let them into the wild. The animal's final 3,400 kilometer or 2,100 mile journey, geesh, took 2 days for each of the two groups. They were transported from Manuana by truck to Durban. This is quite remarkable considering this is all occurring on the trucks. Then flown to Kigali, the Rwandan capital, from where they were finally transported to Akagira by road. Oh, okay. So they flew them too. Yeah, this has happened with possibly elephants too. Um, Now the thing is that the veterinarians, their caretakers in general, are consistently checking up on the rhinos, and also the rhinos are probably very familiar with their smells, and that helps calm the rhinos, especially if they've been with them since they were young. The translocation was the culmination of months of planning and collaboration between the Rwanda Development Board, African Parks, and Munywana Conservancy. We're confident these rhinos will successfully adapt to their new home in Akagira, Huste said. As with all translocations and management interventions, there's always an element of risk, but we have mitigation procedures in place and will be constantly monitoring the well-being of each individual animal. Further translocations from Rhino Rewild are expected this year and beyond. For now, the Rhino Rewild initiative is celebrating a milestone. Huste said, "We're excited about this and see it as an enormous opportunity to safeguard the future of white rhino. It's a complex process, but will all be worth it once the rhinos are safe and thriving in Akagira." So yeah, so I guess in this picture, this is one of the rhinos. And yeah, they've semi dehorned him to make him less attractive to poachers. It will grow back, just take a couple of years. Um, with the right nutrition. So this is good. We've got healthy rhinos moving into Akagira National Park in Rwanda. Hopefully, they will adapt to the ecosystem and they will actually start feeding on the native vegetation and not perish like what the black rhinos did over in Chad. But also, Chad, depending on where they were from, the black rhinos were from in Eastern Africa. It's a much more, well, you could say Southern Africa too, but it's a much more arid ecosystem compared to different parts of Eastern Africa. Now, if you're looking at Southern Africa and these rhinos, if they were traveling through parts of like the Kalahari Basin or the Kalahari Desert, then they could probably, I would think, adapt a bit better to Chad. But Chad, much of the country is just desert, and then other parts of it are somewhat like sub-Saharan Africa, and you have like acacia woodland, but there's a lot of just not very plentiful vegetation there, and I think it was just too much for the rhinos. So, but besides that, this is good in what we're hearing with these white rhinos. Let me know what your thoughts are on the white rhinos in the comments, and thank you for joining Creature Guy Live. Oh, and that's it for the animal news of the day. You can catch our live streams at 6 p.m. Central, Friday through Saturday, and Sunday at 3 p.m. And remember to catch our live streams Monday through Friday at 10 a.m. Our daily news live streams at Monday through Friday at 10 a.m. And remember to like, comment, and if you love talking about animals, share the show with everyone you know, because nothing is better than all animals all the time.